In the very first year of the Great War, demons from faraway worlds crashed down on Earth and brought ruin everywhere. The blue planet turned into a bloody battlefield for countless races, and even though some humans woke up with special powers, they were still too weak and quickly fell behind. So amidst the crumbling ruins, humanity's first warriors with determined eyes stepped forward to face the danger ahead. Humanity fought hard to survive against the demon ring's fierce attack, using only their weapons and the few awakened people they had left. But after more than 10 years, both of our defenses crumbled, leaving us in deep trouble and forcing us to fight until our very last breath. A cloud of pitch-black demons, thick as a swarm of locusts, poured in to fill the air with fear and hopelessness. 1 million lives were lost in the Eastern Human Alliance, leaving rows of white gravestones that stand as a sad reminder of how terrible the war was. With weapons running out and more people waking up with powers, nations started pouring every resource into training these individuals to strengthen their battle lines. To save their home and stay alive, people went all out, used every last resource, and kept fighting the endless war while a strong wall stood tall in the snowy northern city of the Eastern Alliance. Chen Guhai, a 19-year-old with only level 2 electro-disintegration power, took a bloody fall at the 10th defense line, losing half his hand in a fierce fight against a rotting giant. Sui, a young 22-year-old who could wield fire, chose to sacrifice herself at the 9th defense line by blowing up a bridge with her own power and tons of explosives, disappearing in a sea of fire. The mayor stood before hundreds of empty frames that marked the fallen and spoke through tears, while I looked at the list of our brothers and sisters who had died fighting in the front lines, saying last month that they are truly our family. Tears streamed down his cheeks as Mayor Yachong cried out, declaring them the heroes of Yachong and the Hua Nation. The crowd bowed their heads in silence as his words echoed through their pain-filled eyes, reminding them that the 9th defense line had fallen just a few months ago. Mayor Yacheng's words hung heavy in the air like a final warning. If the races keep breaking our lines, Yakan will pay the price. For we have nowhere left to run as the Eastern Alliance gathers 1 million heroes to strike back. Looking down, the mayor stood tall and his questions struck the crowd like lightning, asking what we, the young people of Yachong, must do. With tears streaming down their faces, young men clenched their fists and roared in anger and sadness, shouting together to protect their home, their mountains, and their rivers in an endless, united cry. The crowd went wild as thousands of young people rushed forward, their endless shouts echoing across the square while their determination flowed like a rising tide. They roared with hate-filled eyes, and I felt a burning urge to join them, rush to the front lines, and fight the enemy. Young faces twisted in fury screamed for them to kill the aliens and tear them apart. A cloud of hands shot into the air, while registration papers danced through the room like birds announcing a battle. I signed up, and the loud thump of my stamp echoed as each name was called and fate decided, with Chunyu and Sher both joining the ranks one by one. At the recruitment desk, a stern officer scanned the list, and next up was Nanxing. The young man named Nanxing stepped forward as the officer read his details aloud. A 20-year-old architecture student from Yacheng Industrial University with no special powers yet. When asked if he wanted to join the front lines, a surprised classmate shouted, "You're going to kill the enemy?" Nanxing looked away with cold resolve and simply said, "Yes," leaving the classmates staring in shock. Nanxing stared straight ahead with a steady voice, while I decided to hang back in the rear to handle the supplies. The crowd behind him murmured with criticism and disappointment, questioning why he wouldn't go to the front lines when only women, children, and the elderly stay in logistics, calling it cowardice and feeling ashamed because he was even from their own school. The recruitment officer shouted at Nanxing with disappointment, reminding him that while the nation faces danger and the front lines desperately need strong people like him, he chose to run away after the other races once humiliated our people. Nanxing turned his face away, his eyes steady and full of no regret, because I will never forget what happened, but I have chosen my own path. His old classmate angrily grabbed Nanxing by the collar, calling him a coward who ran away when the country was in danger. While everyone was furious, the recruitment officer had to step in and speak up to stop the fight from getting out of hand. The stern officer looked at Nanxing and reminded him that joining up was his own choice and responsibility, not something forced upon him. He gave the form to Nanxing so he could leave, but his voice still held a sad regret for the wasted talent he saw. While the crowd looked at Nanxing with scorn and disappointment, he silently accepted his fate, turned around, and walked away. Shouts and curses echoed behind him like daggers, blaming him for the world's suffering and warning of doom if the battle failed. So Nanxing walked away alone into the dust and cold indifference. The next day, the city's gray sky turned white with snow as military helicopters roared through the quiet. An endless line of military trucks pushed forward through the blizzard while ancient songs of brotherhood in battle echoed above the danger. In the middle of everyone cheering and shouting to defend their country, a person in a hoodie watched quietly from afar while his phone started buzzing. He stared at his glowing phone, where the big news about the Eastern Alliance's victory was overshadowed by a smaller headline shouting that Yi Chang's genius refused to join the army. Word spread fast that the genius Yaya Chang'ing was refusing to join the army, making everyone talk about it. Malicious words rained down on Nanxing, calling him a coward and a burden. Yet his cold eyes held a deep, unspoken meaning. Nanxing's eyes shone with a mix of fierce resolve and deep sadness as he whispered to himself, "Yes, they are all heroes, but this battle is nothing but mods flying into a flame." As he watched tiny humans get swallowed by giant monsters with glowing red eyes, he realized his million-strong army had underestimated the aliens, and memories of his past life flooded back where he too had joined the ranks early and charged into the front lines to fight them. He stood up and faced the war map, bathed in a light that felt like a prophecy, while I eventually joined the war command and became a brilliant strategist. As people were pushed back again and again, he poured his whole life into studying 5 special gifts until he grew them into his own body, making them shine like living magic trees. As long as those 5 talents were upgraded to work together, they could have turned the tide of war, but before I could finish my plan, humanity fell and I was killed by one of the strongest creatures from the myriad races, leaving my final sight filled with giant monsters kneeling around me with glowing red eyes. Right then, with blood spurting from his mouth and despair filling his heart, he roared in fury that his power had never been strong enough before. The battlefield was dead and quiet with snow falling gently, a tiny figure lying broken among the ruins as he wished he could have saved humanity. Suddenly, a miracle happened as the nun sitting on the snow-covered bench stared at his footprints, while fate or obsession seemed to have brought me back to life. Not only that, but the 5 mighty talent trees, beast taming, elemental, Ashura, array, and undying, returned to me whole, rising from the ground as streams of blue light that held earth-shattering power, even though building them up will take a lot of source stones and time. He held an unshakable belief that if he could master his 5 talents and plan from afar, he could stand alone against all enemies and save humanity, even if every defense line crumbled. He turned away from the talent trees, whispering to himself that even if he rushed to the battlefield now, he couldn't defeat many aliens or find enough source stones to upgrade his powers, so risking them would only cut his progress short. With a determined look and a hand reaching out as if grabbing destiny himself, he knew the testing grounds, filled with mutated beasts, were the perfect place to quickly gather the source stones needed to upgrade his talent. Through the white snow, Nanxing raced like an arrow through the night with burning eyes, needing to quickly gather source stones to upgrade his talents at the testing grounds behind the Chang'ing City branch. Who could have guessed that the testing grounds, once a bustling training site for superpowered heroes during the Great War of Myriad Races, would now sit so empty and lonely? Even though the cold air bit hard, old workers kept carrying frozen monster corpses to feed the soldiers, while a young man told Aunt Wang to stay safe because helping the country was the only thing they could do in this crazy time. Aunt Wang sighed, her shoulders bowed under the weight of worried thoughts about the slow supplies for the front, where growing old had left them too weak to wield heavy swords, forcing them to fight the fierce beasts one by one at a painfully slow pace. The girl on crutches stood silent, her sad eyes on her coworkers as a quiet wish slipped out, heavy with the ache of feeling unable to do more. Suddenly, a figure broke the silence, and Nanxing stepped forward to greet them and say, "I'm here to train at the testing grounds." He flashed a confident smile and swept his sharp gaze over the crowd, noticing your shortage and offering to help you deal with the mutated creatures. HLY grabbed the sword, his red eyes shining with resolve, nodded at the warning, and marched down the slope toward the testing ground, leaving the hopeful looks of the group behind, including the red-haired girl who was secretly happy the job would be done faster. As the quiet young man walked away, the red-haired girl blushed, thinking to herself that even though he didn't say much, he was strangely handsome. But right away, Aunt Wang dragged her back to the harsh truth, coldly pointing out that Nanxing was the coward who had run away from the battlefront. Aunt Wang kept making fun of him, laughing at how a coward like him could possibly fight monsters, and bragging that he would soon give up and start crying. Nanxing stepped into the dark testing zone where red beams flashed across the walls, and a message popped up saying he had picked the top-tier challenge. But the system glitched because no one had ever done it before and asked him if he wanted to start anyway. Nanxing didn't even pause before he firmly confirmed the words, his voice ringing out in the quiet room to say, "Begin the challenge." Suddenly, a wave of red energy burst out and filled the whole room, followed by a warning that a Gradia challenge has started and told everyone to get ready. All while a mysterious voice echoed the words, "System error," and warned that a dark night was coming for humanity with no way to escape. And then, out of the red fog came hideous twisted monsters, their evil growl demanding the question, "Are you ready to vanish into the shadows for humanity's sake?" Nanxing stood alone surrounded by monsters, but as whispers of curses filled his mind, his eyes suddenly flared with red fire, showing an unbreakable will. In that split second, he stood firm and spoke with a booming voice, I am ready. While the sword in his hand blazed with light, prepared for a fight where life hangs in the balance. Nanzing didn't even hesitate. He plunged right into the monster horde, his sword swinging wildly while a sudden idea struck him. Let's start by using that beast-taming talent. With the myriad races having invaded and countless creatures twisted into monsters by the wild magic, Nanzing was just barely escaping their deadly attacks. He remembered his old life on the front lines, where all kinds of races and strange mutated beasts like the powerful umbrella bird with its incredible muscle memory were constant dangers. While ferocious monsters roared around him, Nanzing moved faster than the wind to strike right at the umbrella bird's weak spot. He didn't think twice. He swung his sharp sword right into the monster's head, and it was over before anyone could blink. Just as the umbrella bird hit the ground, a glowing elemental stone appeared, and Nanzing grabbed it to start something new. He realized the talent system worked just like before. Every time he beat an umbrella bird, he got an elemental stone, and every time he leveled up, he could tame one more mutated beast. Even with small cuts, Nanzing stood his ground with strength in his heart, knowing he could survive and charging forward to dodge every deadly blow until he felt the monsters would be no match for him. A monster lunged with sharp teeth, but Nanzing was faster, slipping past like a ghost and swinging his sword to slice through another charging beast with decisive, powerful strikes. Nanzing whipped around and kicked the circling monster so hard it was thrown back instantly. His feet hit the ground with a solid thud that sent a ripple through the air, leaving him ready for the next move. One kick after another sent the monsters crashing down as Nanzing kept moving, turning the whole battlefield into his own deadly dance. He moved smoothly through the crowd of monsters, looking up to take out the flyers first, then slashing his sword through the air like a deadly wave to sweep away the enemies flying above. He gasped for air, his face a mess of dirt and blood, yet his eyes still sparkled with hope as he stared at the glowing panel, and just as I suspected, the work had gotten much faster. Blood coated his face while Nanzing's eyes burned crimson in the smoke, and though every breath was hard, he kept his will strong. Right in front of him, a mass of black bird monsters screamed out, while their giant boss flapped its wings to make the whole scene wild and dangerous. That was the Umbrella Bird Emperor, the leader of the monster horde and a tough enemy he had to fight. A powerful counterattack sent him flying through the air, blood splattering as Nanzing muttered that defeating his opponent in his current state would be very difficult. But seeing the deadly pounce coming, he glided like a ghost to evade it and realized he couldn't just meet that terrifying power head-on. So his eyes flashed with determination. He spun around with a low growl and vowed to attack its weak point. The sword flashed and tore through the air, diving straight into the soft spot on the monster's huge belly. He narrowed his eyes, realizing that this durability felt much stronger than he remembered from his past life. Without even thinking, he rushed forward, his sword swings full of anger and sharp focus, until the monster screamed in pain and its huge body crashed down, cracking the earth wide open. Once more, Nanzing roared with eyes turning red as he charged to bring the dying monster down. While the lunch break began, two middle-aged women with unhappy faces were talking to each other nearby. Xielu approached Aunt Wang and Sister Li to ask why they weren't heading to the cafeteria, but Aunt Wang growled that she intended to watch how long he could keep up his act before sneaking off, while Sister Li felt uneasy about the danger in their city now being as bad as the front lines. A voice boomed through the hall, shouting that Nanzing had finished the first level of the top-tier challenge. Aunt Wang, looking doubtful, whispered to Xiaolu and Sister Li that the man must have quit because he couldn't handle the pressure. Just then, a giant figure lunged right at Aunt Wang, making her eyes go wide with pure fear. Aunt Wang's eyes went wide with terror as cold sweat poured down her face. A horrified scream tore through the air as Aunt Wang fell to the ground, leaving Sister Li and Xiaolu frozen in shock before the new figure. Nanziyang stood battered and bleeding, yet his eyes were unshaken as the system announced his new record: 2,000 kills on the Trial Tower's first floor. Aunt Wang and Xiaolu stared in shock, stammering to ask if he had truly passed the grade A challenge while looking so wretched. Nanzing lifted his head with eyes the color of fresh blood and spoke in a cold, simple, "Yes, I passed." Then turned his back to tell the others to clean up the monster bodies while his voice stayed completely empty of feeling. Sister Li stared with wide eyes at Nanziyang's retreating back, feeling a strange mix of shock and emotion swell inside her. She looked down in horror at the mountain of monster corpses, realizing that this was the staggering number Nanzing had slain all by himself. While floating in warm water, Nanzing muttered to himself that the experience needed to level up had doubled. So he checked his talent tree and saw that even with mutated beast aiming at 2,000, it still wasn't enough to reach level 3 after just clearing the first floor. Suddenly, a voice crackled over the loudspeaker to tell us about the war. The loudspeaker kept shouting that the next wave of attacks was coming, and 2 high-level superpowers had already reached the front lines. Nanzing shut his eyes as visions of his past life rushed back, knowing the two before him were doomed to fail and would soon cause the front line to crumble, while the 8th defense line collapsed as time ran out. Without pausing, the black-haired young man quickly shut off the water, his mind locked on one goal. He had to race straight to the 2nd floor of the tower before time ran out. While other cleaners stared in shock at Nanxiang's victory, one muttered he couldn't believe the boy passed, while another nodded with complex eyes, agreeing that after such injuries, the kid would need a long rest for giving his all in a challenge so few can conquer. With a scowl on her face, Aunt Wang shook her head and said that chasing too many dreams at once is silly, so it's best to just take life one small step at a time. I wonder how many days he'll be stuck resting with those terrible injuries, or if he'll just vanish, claim he's hurt, and never show up again. Suddenly, a cry of astonishment broke the gossip, because Nanxiang came back with a resolute look. Cough, cough. The man has returned, and while someone tries to hush the crowd, another voice sneers. So what if he's back? Aunt Wang rushes over, demanding if he's done with the 1st floor, but the dark-haired boy answers without a second thought that he's heading to the 2nd floor to keep going, leaving Aunt Wang's jaw dropped in shock. She roared, her anger and worry mixed, and shouted, "With injuries this bad, you still want to climb to the 2nd floor? What are you trying to prove?" Sister Li stepped in with worry in her voice, telling Nanxiang not to rush up to the 2nd floor where giant mutated monsters wait, promising to find help, while Xiaolu added that the tough oxtiger beasts are nearly impossible to fight. The dark-haired boy just turned his back, walked away with purpose, and left behind a cold "thanks, but I'd rather do it myself." Aunt Wang screamed with pure sarcasm, mocking him by asking why someone so strong wasn't out fighting on the front lines. Why show off for nothing? Another voice called out as Sister Li watched Nanxiang's retreating back, her eyes full of wonder at the strangeness of such a person. He wasn't the kind of guy to hide from death or stay in the back, and even with an injury to his eye, Nanxiang marched forward while those words hung heavy in the air. A crimson warning ripped through the air, signaling that the Gradia Challenge's 2nd floor system had crashed, while Nanxiang stood before a horde of giant ox-tiger monsters with furious eyes, ready to fight with no chance of running away. Wrapped in a red burst of power, Nanxiang felt the scary weight of the tower's 2nd floor, which was totally different from the 1st. In the middle of a massive crowd of huge monsters, he clumsily jumped out of the way of their heavy attacks, while his bright red sword energy slashed through the air. The young man's red eyes showed the monster's face, and his burning will to fight was clear in every line. But then a monster lunged forward, striking with such force that he had no time to react. He was thrown back hard, slamming into the ground and sending sparks flying. He twisted on the cold ground with aching wounds, yet his will stayed strong. Lifting his head, he whispered to himself that he was too small and weak to survive a direct blow, especially with his wounds, while the giant monsters with bloodshot eyes sneered down at his broken form. Nanxiang pushed himself up, his cold eyes locking onto the monsters as he stood tall with a fierce energy surrounding him, declaring that while they dared to mock him, he would not act without a plan before his eyes flashed blood red and a deadly wave of killing intent surged. Suddenly, a huge monster was pulled straight up into the sky like it was being caught by an invisible giant hand. The Nanxiang sword soared high, dashing past the stunned monsters. He dove straight down, his burning metal blade cutting right through the monster's head. He swung his sword with a sharp, strong cut, and blood gushed out of the wound. The monster screamed one last time before turning into red dust, leaving only a deadly empty space. As one terrifying threat faded, a new horde of giant monsters burst from the shadows with burning red eyes and angry growls. But Nanxiang stayed cool in the middle of the danger and realized he could tame these level 2 beasts first before finishing them off. A burst of red energy shot from his hand, showing off his special power to tame monsters. The taming aura burst open like a wild storm, swallowing the whole horde of monsters in a brilliant flash of red light. The monsters screamed in terror, shaking so hard they nearly fell, as they fought desperately against the strange force holding them down. Nanxiang stood strong right in the middle of the swirling energy, sending spikes shooting out of the ground to pin the monsters in place so they couldn't move. The huge monster was now lying flat on the ground, completely stopped, while he gave a quiet smirk of approval at how well it obeyed, swung his glowing red sword one more time, and prepared to push through to reach level 3 all at once. The scene shifted to a busy butcher area where workers were slicing huge pieces of monster meat, while an old man shouted for help and Nanxiang quietly rested among the chaos, until someone urged them to hurry because the space was running out and the old man finally decided to call it a day. Just as a blue light appeared on Nanxiang's virtual screen showing his monster taming talent had leveled up to 6, allowing him to tame 2,000 monsters, and he thought that since he had already wiped out over 10,000 monsters in just 3 days, far better than the front lines, he might be able to venture into the wilderness that night. The wildlands were a deadly trap where even the strongest heroes struggled to get out, hiding giant monsters in the dark that only stayed back from the city because of the brave superhumans and their powerful weapons. Perched high above, he stared at the distant mountains hiding a monster kingdom, knowing that only by taming them could he defeat the many races. Back in reality, a silver-haired old man asked Nancy if they needed another shift to move supplies to the front lines, promising that overtime was always an option to send more help, so Nancy urged him to get some rest. Outside the city, a strong wall stood tall above empty, snow-covered roads where only a few small trucks were driving. A man leaned out of his truck, shouting for the road to clear while looking down at the chaotic city streets filled with people and ambulances rushing to carry the wounded from the front line, while Nanzing stood in the crowd with a worried look, seeing just how dire the situation had become. Suddenly, some citizens looked up from the ground, cheering and pointing as bright streaks of light zoomed past overhead. Missiles screamed through the dark sky, so fast and fierce that the crowd thought they were winning the fight. But Nanzi Ying, using the sharp eyes and past life experience that made him a veteran, knew right away that this wasn't a victory sign but a desperate long-range push warning that the defense line would fall any minute now. Without even a second to think, he slung on his half-face mask, clutched his alloy sword tight, wrapped his battle cloak around him, and marched straight through the snow with Nanzing, ready for the fight. As a military truck sputtered to a halt in the deep snow, anxious shouts echoed through the freezing night while the furious driver cursed his broken-down vehicle, and a blonde woman urged him to abandon it before lurking danger struck. So he quickly agreed and began gathering their belongings. The driver's eyes went wide with shock as a terrifying, shadowy shape slowly emerged from the dark ahead. Suddenly, a figure flashed past, quickly slipping through the snow and leaving the truck behind. The two girls in the car stared in shock, wondering who would be crazy enough to leave the city at this late hour. The black-haired boy with a half-mask turned his head to warn that a huge, dangerous wolf was right ahead. The black-haired girl begged her older sister to hurry because the hospital needed medicine right now, but the blonde woman kept worrying if they would make it through safely. The black-haired girl explained that this was the wolves' dark lair, and since the medicine team had no weapons, she warned them that after 10 years of seeing too many madmen, they were walking straight into danger. Finally, the blonde woman decided and dropped all her doubts, grabbing the steering wheel hard. A sudden noise made them both jump, and their frightened eyes locked onto the window. Through the rearview mirror, the driver from before was being eaten by a monster while his faint cries echoed through the snow, and the blonde girl realized with horror that the predator was charging straight at them. The dark-haired girl frantically snatched up her gun and screamed, "Drive! A huge steel wolf is chasing us!" As the nightmare became real, with the monster's scary face and bared fangs suddenly looming right up against the front of the car. With no way to run, the black-haired girl opened fire while the blonde woman slammed on the gas to escape, and in that deadly moment, the girl growled with burning eyes, ready to face death head-on. In the middle of the snowstorm, Nanzi suddenly looked up as distant gunshots warned that danger was coming for the herb team. The medical team was in trouble, but he was even more desperate, pinned down by a pack of mutated wolves with glowing red eyes watching him in the dark. He smirked at the idea that would save him the trouble of looking. The monsters, now sharper and trickier thanks to his own racing thoughts, swarmed around him in a deadly ring. Bullet holes still marred the truck's windshield, a grim reminder of the fierce fight that had just ended. A huge, twisted wolf growled with all its might, showing its sharp teeth and sharp nails while it bit onto the truck, refusing to let go. While the blonde girl in the truck frantically reloaded her weapon and shouted a warning for Xian to be careful, Xian calmly reassured her teammate to grab the chance to drive away no matter what happened with the wolves. The blonde girl gripped the steering wheel hard, her blue eyes burning with strength as she said, "Leave it to me." While Nanziying surged into the pack of wolves, her sword flashing bright as she cut through the swirling snow. Suddenly, he spotted a huge shape in the distance. Thinking the Wolf King might be an ally, he realized that taking down this pack would save the medical team, and then a massive wolf with sharp horns and red eyes appeared, revealing itself as the pack leader. Nanzing stared right into the snarling face of the Wolf King and shouted, "Now that the leader has arrived, our fight begins." As a blinding flash of light erupted to show that a huge battle was about to start. Nanzing stood his ground while a blinding blue light exploded around him, showing that a new power had been unleashed. The system openly showed that the masked young man had awakened the beast-taming power from his past life. Hovering in the air, Nanzing unleashed a swirling burst of blue energy that acted like a tsunami, pushing back the growling pack of mutated wolves while he stood steady as a mountain, sweeping everything away in his path. The Wolf King's fiery red eyes tightened into angry slits, showing how worn out and furious he was by this sudden, strange strength. The Wolf King roared so loudly that his whole body burned bright red as he fought back against a blast of blue energy from his enemy. The fight broke out as two rivers of blue and red energy crashed together in a wild, powerful show. As the mutated wolf twisted and screamed inside the spinning energy storm, Its fierce red light refused to dim. Nanxing touched down right between two huge wolves, his blue energy glow still humming around him as he waited for the next move. He turned away from the pack, stared straight at the Wolf King, and let the blue light around him glow brighter and brighter. "Kill the horse before the rider and take the king to bring down the bandits," he shouted, his eyes staring hard through the mask. The mutated wolves lifted their heads in shocked growls, but Nanxing didn't hesitate. He shot forward like a blue arrow, sending a massive shock wave that threw the entire pack backward and cleared his path. A mighty wave of energy rolled across the battlefield, hurling the small wolves around like ragdolls. He stood before the Wolf King, a fiery red light burning from his hand as he declared, "We must tame their leader first," while the beast roared back with eyes that looked ready to burn everything to ash. The young man rushed straight at the Steel Wolf King with all his might, refusing to stop until he could tame the beast. A fiery red glow burst from his hand, wrapping around the Wolf King just as he shouted "Tame," causing the beast to howl in agony while the young man's powerful energy pushed its huge body backward. Its roar shook the air, yet inside those blazing red eyes, a fierce battle raged between its wild nature and a power it couldn't resist. Even the other twisted wolves had to bow down, as his calming power spread through them and forced the whole pack to obey. While this happened, a glowing talent tree appeared in his mind, its roots reaching out with his taming power. But right in the middle of this fight where life and death hung in the balance, a loud gunshot suddenly cracked through the air and broke his focus. Inside the armored vehicle, the black-haired girl begged her sister to drive faster as the blonde girl slammed the gas pedal, screeching tires and racing through the chaos while the black-haired girl screamed in terror, realizing that sharp wolf fangs were already tearing into their car. The car window exploded into shards, and frantic screams rose up to mix with the total chaos. The twisted wolf showed its sharp teeth and jumped right into the cockpit, its burning red eyes filled with a hunger for blood. The armored car felt like a tiny toy, bouncing up and down in the white snow while surrounded by monsters. Standing on the edge of death, the black-haired girl stared in shock at a strange sight, wondering if her eyes were playing tricks because the scary, mutated wolves looked absolutely adorable. There is a close-up of a mutated wolf with glowing azure eyes and sharp fangs that looks like a pampered child. The huge beast dropped down to its size, its eyes glowing with a strange kindness that had nothing to do with the wild nature of wolves. Far away, armored trucks were stuck in the white snow with packs of growling, changed wolves circling them, but the wolves had finally stopped their wild attack. Inside the wreck, the black-haired and blonde girls peered out with wide eyes, a mix of shock and horror at the impossible scene before them. The pack of wolves still circled them, their growls filling the air, yet they stood firm with no plan to rip their prey to pieces. Two big wolves walked right up to the car, then suddenly bowed their heads as if they were completely giving up. Up on the snowy peak, Nanxing stood tall and gave a command, causing the whole wolf pack, even the giant Wolf King, to bow their heads at the same time to show they obeyed. The blonde girl and the black-haired girl stood frozen on the car roof, staring in shock at the glowing energy where giant mutated wolves had appeared, wondering if these beasts could ever be tamed. Their eyes went wide with shock as the blonde girl screamed in awe, wondering how anyone could tame thousands of wolves and realizing just how terrifyingly powerful that beast tamer level must be. Nanxing stood next to the glowing talent tree as his status panel showed. He had reached the maximum daily limit for taming monsters and decided not to waste his precious stones. Nanxing smirked as he looked at the wolf pack, surprised to have a group of pets so soon. He sat casually on the Wolf King's back, gently patting its head as he ordered the beasts to disperse and reminded them not to harm humans before muttering to himself about the vast wilderness ahead, the looming war, and his urgent need to gather an army of millions while also protecting the herbalists. Just as Nanxing was sketching out his big idea, a sudden message from the factory broke his concentration. He muttered about an emergency meeting, his eyes sparkling with curiosity as he read the note asking him to come to the training ground. At the snowy training ground, workers and loaded trucks gathered while a high-ranking official delivered a harsh speech. The cold air bit at those huddled people while the official's angry voice, sharp as a whip, blamed the Yi City branch for failing to handle even the weakest monsters despite their supposed rapid progress. A middle-aged man stepped forward to plead his case, arguing that since Yi City had never faced monsters of this size before, his factory was staffed only with elderly workers from the back lines. Time? The official snapped back, his eyes flashing like razors and his face showing he wasn't happy about it. He roared, gripping a handkerchief tightly and shouting that the army at the front is starving. With supplies running low in the back, he barked an order like a thunderclap. "We have to take on the toughest monsters up front to keep our soldiers safe." Linasai pulled his gun and pointed it straight at Nanxing, sneering, "You people from Ye City think you can cause trouble and disrespect your superiors?" Nanxing stared straight into the gun barrel, his red eyes flashing with a cold light as he recognized the man standing there. He remembered his past life, where he was a wanted criminal known as a traitor who lived off the war's bloodshed, before finally being put to death after 12 long years of fighting across countless lands. That was the supply line vampire Lin Yukai. Before meeting his end, Lin Yukai was a daring smuggler who stole massive amounts of military gear from the back to the front, costing many lives until they finally caught him. He really aimed at slowing down Ye City's operations so that while they rushed to catch more highly mutated monsters, he could just sit back and grab all the money for himself. No wonder he was here, because Nanxiang remembered how the man had pointed a gun at Lin Yukai in a past life, and now the traitor was standing right in front of him. Nanxiang made a secret promise to settle the score with Lin Yukai, but only after he had taken everything he could from him, while the workers kept on shouting that they weren't being lazy. Lin Yuta kept his gun pointed, mocking the workers and claiming their shortages were justified by their own great suffering and sacrifices. The silver-haired man's eyes narrowed as a chilling familiarity washed over him at the sight of the young man, who suddenly shouted that this person was the cowardly deserter Nanzi from Ye City, only for Nanzi to calmly retort that he had already faced tens of thousands of mutated monsters and warned that his death would only delay their supplies, shocking everyone when they realized this was the infamous slaughterhouse ace who could manipulate minds and had been framed by officials, causing Lin Yuta's fury and the silent agreement of the onlookers that Nanzi's words were terrifyingly true. The man in the black jacket stared at Nanxiang with a serious look, then gave a small smile that clearly said, "Okay, you can take this mission." Lin Yui clenched his teeth and swore a harsh vow that 5,000 level 4 monsters would be sent tomorrow, with Nanxiang only spared if he could kill them all within a week. But if he failed, Lin Yui promised to clear every old and new debt all at once. Nanxiang nodded with a cold face and walked away, leaving the worried voices and offers of help behind, while he told them he could handle it all on his own. In Nanxiang's mind, a terrifying giant level 4 monster erupted with glowing red eyes and deadly spikes, a super strong beast built to tank hits and scramble your thoughts. Nanxiang saw that these weren't just materials, but precious resources to upgrade his talent tree, all thanks to Lin Yui the traitor. So with cold eyes he swore to destroy the monsters, grow his own power, and then finally uproot Lin Yui and all his connections once and for all. The next morning, 5,000 level 4 monsters were crammed into giant boxes, ready for a life or death fight. Surrounded by towering stacks of containers holding 5,000 level 4 monsters, a group of weary people watched as a plump official read out an order giving a logistics soldier named Nanxiang the dangerous task of killing them all in just 1 week under the command of Quartermaster Lin Yuta. Suddenly, his voice turned sharp and dangerous as he accused you of defying orders, sparking riots, and attacking an officer, warning that any delay would bring immediate execution without needing approval from above. He sneered and pointed his finger like a gun. Then the firing squad fired, and suddenly there was a loud bang followed by laughter. The whole group stood frozen in shock as the plump official sneered, mocking them for suddenly fearing the firing squad after swearing their oath, and even stepping closer with a twisted grin to promise he would personally carry out the execution himself. Nanxiang said nothing, just silently took the order, while the young man with glowing red eyes flashed with anger and insultingly replied that those words were just from a messenger. The fat official flew into a rage, but Lin Yu stepped forward with a fake smile and said, "It's all right. We should be kind to those who are about to die," then turned to Nanxiang and said, "Let the show begin. I'll wait for you here." While the reddish-brown-haired girl and the man in the black jacket quickly put on their gas masks as he worriedly reminded her that high-level monsters need anesthetic smoke, but most of it has been sent to the front lines and there isn't much left, so it might not be enough, to which Nanxiang replied curtly, "Be careful." And he answered, "Understood." As Nanxiang led the group into the container zone, a voice asked, "Hey, can't these mutated monsters fire mental blasts that most testing grounds fear?" The bodyguard next to Lin Yui said, "I tested my mind powers on that kid, and he didn't react at all. Level 4 monsters have such strong mental strength that even I feel overwhelmed, so just wait until we kill Nanzi." Lin Yui grinned wickedly at the thought of Nanxiang going crazy, though by then the poor man would likely be too angry to fear death, while inside the cold metal room the plump official and his guard talked about how stingy their boss was for not letting them take more of the spoils. The official grinned wickedly as he imagined all the treasures he'd get once the kid was dead. Then he told the bodyguard to keep an eye on things. The shadowed bodyguard nodded with quiet certainty, promising that every word spoken here would be told exactly as it happened. Meanwhile, Nanzi Yang stepped boldly into the crimson zone where glowing monster eyes watched, but she remained steady as a giant pair of red eyes loomed overhead with terrifying pressure, and the black-haired youth kept his own red gaze bright and calm behind his gas mask. He whispered to himself, "Not bad at all. These monsters actually know how to fight." Just as a giant bone skull illusion erupted above him, plunging him into darkness where a spike-covered beast lunged to attack, leaving him shocked. Nanxiang's glowing red eyes went wide with shock as he realized the danger was right there, So he spun away from the illusion monster's blow with a quick, powerful dodge. Suddenly, Nanxing swung his sword, blasting a blinding beam of light through the red darkness to hit the real monster hiding inside, which then exploded into pieces while the dark space around them was left empty. He kept attacking, insisting the illusions were pointless since they couldn't control his mind, while Nanxing stood among the fallen monsters, eyes set on gathering more dark energy to power up his Ashura talent. His glowing red eyes looked right through the mask, and Nanxing's challenge forced the enemy to show its true strength. A flash of light lit up his eyes as he whispered a sudden truth, watching his glowing red sword rise while ghostly shadows stretched out from his feet. Nanxing shot forward like an arrow slicing through the night, chased by shadowy spirits. Yet a creepy voice whispered in his ear, trying to break his will and make him quit. A soft groan came from him as his spirit stretched to its breaking point. Painful memories rushed back. His father's ghostly figure seemed to fade away, leaving him wondering what he had to give to get here. Is all of this really worth it? The voice asked, casting doubt on the strength of the many races and his quest for revenge, while a purple symbol sparked in his eyes. He fell to the ground as the poisonous words kept eating away at him, telling him to stop trying to save the world and accept his terrible destiny. Instead, a hand gripped tight, ripped the fake layer apart, and a bright red flash exploded outward. He rose with a burning presence, boldly stating that humanity's future lay in their own hands, while his terrified foes screamed in horror at how he could stand against such evil power without losing his mind. His hand blazed with light, and as he called upon his special power to swallow the evil energy, he became my strength. Horrible screams rang out as the fake monster was swallowed up and disappeared into nothing. Voices bounced around the fancy room, heavy with worry and greed, as one person grumbled about the lack of supplies while another snarled at not wanting to share the huge money, forcing them to keep their rivals calm before everything went wrong. In a lavish room, the greedy boss Lin Yukai sipped his deep red wine while a young blonde girl in bunny ears shyly poured more for him, hoping to charm him, even as the world outside grew chaotic and his own eyes clouded with an urgent, hidden drive to earn money quickly before all his hard work feeding mutated monsters went to waste. But then a heavy sigh escaped him, for the greedy demands of his subordinates and the prying eyes of the military had turned his life into a tangled mess that made him grit his teeth in frustration. Filled with annoyance, Lin Yukai glared at his phone, cursing himself for having no safe spot to fight the dangerous mutated monsters, until the ringing broke the quiet and he told the caller to speak up, only to hear a frantic voice announcing a military order at the Yang branch. Lin Yui sneered with cold disdain at his useless subordinates and demanded to know if they had dealt with that Nanxing yet. The other side quickly rejected it, claiming they had just returned from elsewhere, noting that in only 4 days the mission was nearly done and the highly mutated monsters were almost level 4, far beyond Ye Changing's reach, leaving Lin Yukai and those around him staring in shock. Another voice confirmed it. Yes, sir. The mission to wipe out 5,000 heavily mutated monsters is complete. But then a terrifying truth came out. It was all done by a man named Nanxi, the one who swept them all away. Lin Yusi burst into arrogant laughter, asking if the kid named Nanxing was still alive, and he confirmed that the boy was hanging on tight. The reply came back saying he was still tired but fine and clear-headed, so the commander ordered everyone to keep a close watch on the kid and let him handle the monsters unless he did something else, which left the officials shocked that a normal person had actually pulled off the mission and amazed the curly-haired woman and the brown-haired man to the point of wondering how it was even possible. Deep inside Nanxi's mind, the Ashura talent tree grew to level 5, filling the tree with enough points to unlock a new power, a demonic sword alloy skill that let his blade slice through armor for 5 seconds. Nanxing, though exhausted and staring with a determined gaze, muttered to himself that his strength had soared in just a few days, and even without reaching level 6, he had finally unlocked his first Ashura talent. Now the black-haired young man could press deeper into the wild, hunt down stronger beasts, and speed up his plans, even while 2 assistants looked after him, because Nanxi's mind had already drifted toward much grander dreams. Back at the base, the officials were still buzzing with excitement as the curly-haired woman snorted in proud delight, thinking, "Comrade Little Nan really made us proud." The official kept screaming and threatening to kill anyone who touched his money, but the man in black watched with a serious face and coldly warned that letting this go on would ruin the boss's reputation. He struck with such sudden force that the fat official was knocked out instantly. The witnesses froze in pure terror at that sudden move. The man in black calmly told everyone that the official was being controlled by the monster's dark power and had to act to stop the danger. Nanxing's figure quietly slipped away, leaving behind a chaotic scene. He whispered that the officer had only fainted from a shocking mental attack caused by monsters, proving the Ye City training area was innocent, so he decided to keep his voice low and warn everyone that what was about to happen was far more important than anything else. Nanxing, her sharp eyes wide with worry, asked again as she sensed something dark looming. The curly-haired man paused his words, spun around to shout for little Lu, while a different voice right away called out to Nanxing. The red-haired girl Lu stood with other smiling patients as they all cheered, having just voted Nanxing to lead the Ye City Challenge Tower branch. A hand held up an official letter from his bosses and set it down in front of Nanxing, leaving him speechless. The curly-haired man happily shared how everyone recognized them, turned to Aunt Wang to tell her to leave the past behind, then awkwardly suggested calling Nanxing Commander Nan instead of Comrade Little Nan, and as everyone shouted the new title together, Lu and all around him vowed to give their very best. But Lu quickly voiced her worry, noting that the new mission was heavier, half the troops were gone, and we'd need twice as much gear. She stared at Nanxing with worry, asking how he could keep working non-stop and how he would fix the mess. Inside Nanxing's mind, a blue energy surge erupted as he confidently thought about his level 7 monster taming talent and his level 6 Ashura innate ability, while his crimson eyes flashed with defiance toward the indifferent demeanor of the one who should go ask Lin Yukai and his cronies that question. The girl narrowed her eyes and spoke with deep suspicion, demanding to know if he was working with them and insisting on a serious answer. The moment his opponent looked away, a burst of red energy shot from Nanxing's hand, marking the perfect chance for victory. He let go of his Aora power, blasting the girl so hard that the air shook violently. The girl moved so fast her red nails flashed as she got ready to fight back. A gunshot tore through the air as an energy bullet slammed into Nanxing, causing a dazzling explosion. Nanxing stood his ground, wrapped in a crimson shield of power, growling as he shouted that no one was mistaken about him being Lin Yukai's accomplice. She stepped back with a doubtful look, her eyes wide and asking, "Really? Then why did you help him?" Nanxing answered with a steady calm, reminding me that I hadn't helped him at all, but had only finished the job Ye City gave me. He turned and walked away, leaving the girl staring at him with a mix of hatred and fear, knowing that even if he was a scum or traitor, he was still their boss right now. The girl's eyes suddenly flashed with determination as she stared right at Nanxing and asked, "Why don't we team up to handle Lin Yukai together?" Before introducing herself, "I'm Zhang Yuan from the 8th Defense Line Supply and Intelligence Team, Squad 2. Nanxing stayed quiet and watched Zhang Yuan closely after he suddenly offered to work together. He met her eyes with a steady, unwavering voice and said, "I refuse." For a split second, everything went wild with angry shouts and fists swinging in a furious, unseen storm. A hard kick sent him flying while he stammered sorry in his panic. Zhang Yuan frowned with sharp eyes and asked if Nanxing was choosing to side with the problem, only for Nanxing to calmly turn away and explain that while Lin Yukai must be dealt with, it cannot happen right now and certainly not with her involved. Zhang Yuan jumped back in surprise, asking what you meant. The young man stood tall with a steady look in his eyes, knowing that if you want to get rid of Lin Yukai, you must either kill him or make someone inside tell on him. He kept studying the blurry picture of the crowd, wondering how to stop the whole group if there were more than one person trying to kill the target. Up close, Zhang Yuan's worried face made it clear. She must remember who she is, because if her attempt to kill him fails, she will pay the terrible price. Nanxing turned away to gaze at the ruined city, knowing that if this was an inside job, the investigation would drag on and humanity would suffer another defeat. His words painted a terrifying picture of a fleeing crowd, warning that any rumor of fighting over supplies would make outsiders think our ranks are broken, which would send the whole rear into a chaotic spiral. Zhang Yuan felt all mixed up and didn't know what to do, so he stammered, asking, what do you think we should do?" Nanxing stared straight into her eyes with a firm voice, declaring, "I will handle this myself." Zhang Yuan was so shocked her eyes went wide. Zhang Yuan shouted in anger, calling Nanxing a deserter who couldn't even handle the struggle he was facing. Suddenly, a burst of red energy shot out from Nanxing's hand, showing she had a secret power she hadn't used before. Nanxing looked at him coldly, her crimson energy glowing around her as she silently challenged Zhang Yuan to prove his strength. Zhang Yuan took a startled step back, her eyes wide with fear as she finally grasped the terrifying truth. Nanxing's ability to keep getting stronger every single day was a game-changer. Nanxing cut the talk short and told Zhang Yuan not to make a hasty move. He nodded again, his red eyes burning with fierce resolve, knowing he would be the one to bring Lin Yukai down. Zhang Yuan smirked, half-heartedly swallowing his bitter pill with a brave face, while secretly wishing for more power since he knew he still wasn't strong enough. Nanxing turned and walked away, waving a final goodbye, leaving Zhang Yuan standing all by himself in the chilly, empty room. Zhang Yuan watched him walk away, her heart pounding with worry until his steady look told her to trust him. A few days later, triumphant laughter echoed through a snowy yard of stacked containers as Chief Nin finished his mission and Sister Lu, alongside a curly-haired friend, faced their next daunting quest. Battling level 5 monsters in Ye City. Sister Lu looked at Nanxing and worried about his old wounds, but he just grinned and said he was fine and ready for the next job, while the silver-haired official Lin Yukai laughed loudly, praising his honesty even as he kept signing papers. Lin Yukai saw Nanzi as a perfect tool because he couldn't be bought, so Nanzi helped him cut through the obstacles in his way. He was so caught up in his daydream of getting rich off the war that he laughed out loud at the thought of it. Nanxing's hand tightened into a fist, and a cold fire lit up his eyes. Lin Yukai kept his smile and promised to hand out a medal to Nanxing if the mission went well, while Nanxing, unaware of Lin Yukai's real plan, gave the order for Sister Lu, Aunt Wang, and their team to get to work right away. Inside the huge container zone, hundreds of people cheered as they loaded cages of twisted monsters onto carts, ready to drag them up to the challenge tower for a terrifying fight. Liney felt good about the work vibe in City, so he turned and walked away, leaving Nanxing to figure things out on his own. Nanxing watched Lenuka walk away, his eyes sharp with a silent promise to one day feast on all the wealth the official had gathered. Half of Nanxi's face was hidden in the dark, his red eyes glowing with power as he confirmed that Lin Yukai's riches were meant to make him even stronger. He gripped his evil alloy sword, feeling the crimson energy swirl around the blade as he prepared for the fight ahead. Nanxing let out a roar and charged straight into the pack of fierce wolf monsters. Each of his slashes tore through the air, with notifications that Ashura's killing intent was still under 15 appearing in a sea of crimson energy as Nanxing fought relentlessly, his power rising without end. On March 20th, the 8th defense line of Eagle Land crumbled after 4 hours of fighting, leaving behind 800,000 soldiers and 50,000 espers dead. Nanxing went wild with his metal sword, slashing at the giant snake monster in a frenzy that turned the air red with blood. 2 days later, the northern glacier's 8th wall crumbled, letting 10,000 invaders storm the homeland and costing 600,000 soldiers their lives. He kept fighting, swinging his alloy dragon sword and calling on the Sura Dragon Slayer to battle a giant dragon amidst hazy purple energy. On March 24th, the 8th defensive line on the southern glacier was wiped out by the Slaughter Steel tribe, as 500,000 soldiers vanished in an hour while the cries of kill echoed through Hor. Nanxing returned to the past, slicing through a towering demon with his alloy sword in a sea of fire, while France and Kawasaki fell in an hour, leaving wolves to snarl as the cries of 10,000 races echoed in the flames and struck by black energy. Back in the present moment, 3 wolf-like monsters with glowing red eyes growled and crouched, ready to spring on us. With a stubborn look and a cut on his cheek, Nanxing stared right at the monsters and shouted, "If that's true, then let's try it on you," before lifting his sword high as dark energy swirled around his arm, ready to strike the enemies attacking him. A world-shaking burst of crimson energy exploded, erasing the monsters in a dazzling flash. Standing atop a mountain of monster corpses, Nanxi deactivated her terrifying form and felt the sheer power of her new max level, which felt like a god of war covered in blood. In the quiet dark, the glowing stones shimmered like tiny stars, promising a bright new future and holding the power to tame fierce monsters. But the harsh truth still hung heavy in the air, as a strategic base broadcasted urgent news that the Eastern Alliance, the United States, and the Mao Nation were struggling to survive, prompting the Eastern Alliance to lower the conscription age to 16. The situation collapsed too fast for Nanxing to handle alone, so the young man hurriedly planned his next move while a curly-haired woman beside him shouted that his speed had suddenly improved, and he walked with a sharp, determined look cutting through the noisy crowd. A gray-haired commander with a sharp grin stepped forward, handing over a handkerchief and asking what job the old man wanted, only for Nanxing to return the smile with burning red eyes and shockingly say, "I want you. Tonight, Nanxing asked me to join him in the northern wilds and bring back a pack of steel wolves." The hairless commander burst into hearty laughter, and Nanxing bowed his head in agreement, saying, "Then I'll leave it to you, Commander Lin," as the old commander gave his shoulder a warm pat. "Don't worry," he laughed, but his smile faded fast and his eyes grew cold. "You brat, if you try to pull a trick, I'll finish you off." Nanxing kept his face calm even though the warning was clear. Enemies were attacking from outside and you, a traitor hiding in the back, were beyond saving. Under the bright full moon, Nanxing pulled his thick coat tighter against the snowy north, reminding himself that powerful awakenings always bring deadly plots from the myriad races. So he whispered to call his giant wolves whose crimson eyes glowed in the dark. Under the silver moon, the monster pack's savage growls echoed through the wild, warning of a bloody night of hunting. Nanxing stared at the status board, worried that the requirements to upgrade the monster tamer were getting harder and faster by the day. While snow fell around them, 3 armored cars drove along the lonely, dark mountain road, their headlights cutting through the gloom. Inside the car, the man with the curly hair held the blonde girl close, while his helper warned him that 1,000 wolf monsters with red eyes were rushing forward like a wave to attack their truck group. The gray-haired man panicked and shouted for teleportation, but the comm driver explained that the device only works within a mile while the monster tide stretches 10 miles. So their only chance is to risk charging straight through the wolves to find a way out. Stop talking nonsense and start driving. The man with wild hair screamed, his fear now swallowing any pride he once had. Horrific crashing sounds echoed as the vehicles were relentlessly attacked by the steel wolves, sending smoke, dust, and snow flying everywhere. Looking down from above, Nanxing showed up just in time, his cold eyes taking in the mess of the battlefield. Beneath a bright full moon, Nanxing's face showed clear determination, his red eyes burning like fire, just as a brilliant golden lightning bolt tore through the night to strike the ground and signal a terrifying power about to be unleashed. Nanxing charged straight into battle, his confident voice roaring as he promised to tame a few wolves and wipe out these pests in a flash. Crimson energy flared around Nanxing as he unleashed his monster-taming power, standing ready to face the steel wolves. In the middle of a blizzard and red fire, Nanxing's roar boomed like thunder, ending the fight. Suddenly, huge steel wolves with glowing red eyes and jet-black fur popped into existence, moving exactly as they were told to. Just then, a system alert flashed that Nanxing had tamed more than 100,000 level 5 wolves, and a panicked driver from the convoy shouted that the wolf pack had stopped, probably because a monster tamer was right ahead, making the cheerful man in the car jump for joy as if luck had finally found him. He quickly spoke to the man in sunglasses about the mysterious tamer, but before they could leave, Nanxing had already ordered 100,000 giant steel wolves to tear the convoy apart with chilling coldness, leaving the shocked subordinates screaming in horror as they were overwhelmed by the deadly tide of monsters. The gray-haired man's face turned pale as he screamed for more firepower, but it was already too late since hundreds of thousands of steel wolves had swarmed and attacked the convoy from every angle. The monsters rushed in, smashing windows and ripping cars apart until the armored vehicles were just piles of twisted metal. The man in sunglasses quickly pulled the blonde girl, whose hair was the color of a carrot, into a tight hug to shield her, while the gray-haired man beside him was so scared he was screaming, "Boss, this place is way too dangerous." The man with wild hair looked deathly pale and screamed in terror, begging us to teleport to safety right now. The vehicle was launched into the sky and spun around. The man with the wild hair froze in shock. "Nanxing!" The wild-haired man snarled with rage. "You're the beast tamer? Are you trying to kill me?" The young man tried to answer, but the man shrieked as his face twisted in fear and anger. "If you dare touch me, I promise not only you but your whole family will meet a terrible end." Nanxing smirked sarcastically. "I believe you, but you won't get that chance." And then he lunged forward like a rushing gust of wind. Nanxing's icy hand crushed the man's neck, and as his final breath escaped, he cried out, "Fong! Mang!" Fong Ming cried out in despair at the horrific scene, but Nanxing quickly reassured him and unleashed his ultimate move, Ashura, Dragon Slayer, where his killing intent turned into a dragon that devoured everything. Nanxing's crimson energy and Fong Mang's purple power crashed together with a violent roar, sending a massive explosion shaking the very ground. Fong Mong let out a scream of pure despair as Nanxi's power locked his teleportation ability right out of reach. He couldn't believe his eyes as a towering esper appeared right before him, completely overwhelming him. The man with wild hair stood frozen, his eyes wide with shock as he watched the terrible violence unfold. Nanxi's blade tore straight through Fong Mang, killing the loyal man right as he begged for his life to stop. A sad, cold cry from Nanxing sounded like a goodbye to the traitor. The old man with gray hair was thrown into the air, screaming the name of Nanxing and calling him a traitor, but his shouts soon turned to terror as giant steel wolves appeared and surrounded him. The man with wild hair let out a heartbreaking scream that faded away as the fierce wolves tore him apart without mercy. Nanxing turned and walked away from the empty scene behind him, whispering the name Lin Yukai. Meanwhile, over in Ye City, the full moon cast its bright glow upon the Special Ability Survey Bureau. As a girl in a bathtub flinched at a sudden surge of power coming from the city, the level 5 Esper Su Lang knew it wasn't a dream and immediately ran to report that a Supreme Esper had awakened to the Special Ability Survey Bureau. After the fierce fight in the desolate, snow-covered land, a calm voice spoke up saying, "It's all over now, so don't be scared and you can come out." While the giant steel wolves, having just finished their job, quietly gathered around waiting for their next order. But the loyal monsters were a little too eager, rushing forward to lick him with such intense affection that the young man had to step in and shout, "Hey, Tatilda, too, stop licking. That's enough." Their sharp tongues kept licking the mask, showing the wolves how much fun they were having. His red eyes suddenly flashed and he commanded everyone to stay still and be good, instantly calming the wild wolves and making them gentle. He sighed, shook his head in defeat, and declared he'd give up on them all because even a hero like him had to surrender to the pet's endless energy. A faint smile finally broke across his face as he praised the wolves, filled with satisfaction and trust, calling out that everyone had done well and offering gentle head pats as a reward, while the wolves crowded together like eager puppies waiting their turn under his calm instruction to line up one by one before he waved his hand to summon a fresh wave of small, agile creatures ready for a new mission. He looked right at the task and said, "Go to the northern wilds and find me some source stones. It's just a simple order, but it means something big." Under the bright full moon, he stood tall and powerful while the wolves lifted their heads to howl at the blue sky, announcing that a new hunt was beginning. In a snowy night far away, Ye City stood quiet and grand, with its big slaughterhouse looming in the silence. Inside a modern building, a girl with curly brown hair named Su Ling dropped some shocking news. Nanxing and Linikai's team had been completely wiped out by a giant monster tide in the northern wilderness just yesterday, and Nanxing listened in silence while taking a bite of food. She stared at him with sharp, suspicious eyes, asking if he'd done it, while he casually admitted he had asked for some mutated wolves, leaving her stunned and trembling as she realized he could control monsters too. He pressed a finger to his lips and offered a mysterious smile, whispering, "Sure, some secrets shouldn't be revealed," leaving Su Ling wide-eyed and trembling as she struggled to believe the shocking truth he had just hinted at. Nanxing stood up to break the heavy silence, while Su Ling quickly smoothed out her fear and declared that she had handed over proof of Lin Kai's corruption, meaning his money would be gone soon. Su Ling was so grateful she wanted to buy him a drink tonight, but Nanxing coldly turned her down, saying the country was in trouble and he just didn't feel like celebrating. He stopped in his tracks as a sudden idea popped into his head. He twisted his head, his red eyes sparking with a strange shine, and whispered that the only way to truly thank him was to take another path. Su Ling's eyes sparkled with curiosity and hope as she asked, "Which way?" Nanxing smiled knowingly, gesturing to the spot where they stood, and declared his plan to turn this place into the biggest monster slaughterhouse in Yi City, capable of processing 100 times more creatures than any other, which would surely please their superiors with fresh supplies for the front lines. He stood in the middle of a blazing red zone, a giant meat factory where mutated beasts were slaughtered for shiny gems, making it the ultimate treasure trove. Meanwhile, Nanxing stepped up and stood there, watching crimson light pool in his palm after he had tamed the giant steel wolves, knowing this meant he was finally ready to unleash a massive tide of monsters. 2 days later, his strength had exploded into the 7th level, leaving him with a massive pack of steel wolves, a mountain of source stones, and the power to tame even stronger monsters. Standing in the middle of a burning battlefield with a red glow around him, Nanxing shouted that the world's future is in our hands and called on everyone to join him in saving the northern lands and the planet. His power kept rising as he stood at level 8 Beast Tamer, commanding 500,000 giant steel wolves, a vast stash of source stones, and the skill to tame level 7 monsters, all while hundreds of thousands of those snarling wolves waited under the blood moon for the fight to begin. At the White Bone Plains, huge horned monsters with glowing red eyes let out terrifying roars that filled the sky. Nanxing stepped forward with determined eyes to face the level 6 Blazing Street Ilyaks, and with a sudden surge of crimson energy from his hand, he tamed them into obedient guardians whose fierce gaze now followed his command to protect the White Bone Plains and gather source stones. He commanded his newly tamed beast army to stay away from people and towns, waiting for new orders. The system showed off his true strength by revealing 1,000,000 source stones in his hand, power enough to tame a terrifying level 7 monster. Armed with 1,000,000 source stones, Nanxing turned his gaze toward the dangerous Rift Canyon, home to ferocious level 7 mutated apes. Beneath the crimson blood moon, he felt the terrifying power of level 7 monsters, creatures in a whole new league compared to the wolves and yaks. A huge, twisted ape roared and charged right at the other monster it was fighting. The taming spell backfired and tore the monster apart, filling the air with its terrifying screams. A blue-haired stranger stepped out, burped, and grinned wickedly, while under the bloody moon, a blonde madman brandishing a baseball bat burst onto the scene with a crazy laugh. The blue-haired man's crazy laughter filled the air as he stood tall, his purple chains wrapped tight around him while he looked down at the 2 tiny figures below. Suddenly, Nanxing's power surged and he vowed to crush the monsters into submission before bringing them under his control. He charged headlong into the savage fight, unleashing his Ashura Berserker power to face the giant mutated ape. Each crash sent the ground shattering while Nanxing glided like a gust of wind through the flying debris. He gave his all to wake his level 8 beast taming skill, which created a swirl of fire around him. But the spell faded once more, and the taming trick failed just like a broken sword shattering in the dark. Nanxing froze in shock as shadowy, golden-eyed mutant apes stepped out from the darkness to face him. He finally saw the problem. The constant growling was what kept messing with his taming. He ignored the weak, mutated apes around him and focused only on killing their leader, so a bright red beam cut through the dark night, splitting the ground and splitting the monsters apart. He squeezed his sword so tight that the red energy wrapped around it, waiting for the next move. Amazingly, he dodged every ape attack with skill, calmly realizing how strong they were, and when another strike came, he muttered that they had power but no brains before taking a deadly blow straight on with zero fear. The twisted ape let out a fierce roar, baring its sharp teeth and glowing golden eyes. Nanxing dodged the attack with ease, even called out a compliment, before charging into the swarm of mutated apes surrounded by red energy to roar a challenge, slashing through the smaller monsters with a red sword that tore them apart and sent them crashing into the cliff. Standing tall with a determined look and glowing red power, he shouted, "Come out!" from the dark cave, where a giant shadow with red eyes and mysterious purple energy slowly appeared like a mighty answer. The new enemy was so huge that Nanxing gasped in shock. A crushing weight slammed down on the tiny space, but without his amazing Asaurus skill, he would have already fallen to his knees. The mutated ape king, a muscular giant with burning golden eyes, stood tall like a mountain as he realized he was facing something far stronger than a normal rival, possibly a level 9 warrior or even more powerful. At terrifying speed, the colossal monster charged like lightning, ripping through the air. The ape king's sharp fangs snapped down, nearly devouring him, as he growled, "Want to eat me?" His eyes flashed red as a surge of Sura energy ran through him, but alas, I am no easy meal to feast upon. He slashed the air with a furious roar, unleashing his deadly sword technique, Blade of Fury, Ashura. The ape king roared in pain as his huge body shrank back from his own terrifying strength. Refusing to back down, the mutated ape king's muscles locked tight as a surge of dark purple energy exploded from him, ready to strike back. He lay crushed in a deep crater of dust and rubble, coughing blood while the sky shook and the colossal ape king stood above him like a god of destruction, surrounded by a sea of smaller monsters. Even with terrible wounds, Nanxing stayed calm and let a red glow of deadly rage burst around him as he shouted, "You think I'm easy to beat? Watch me prove who's in charge." Before flipping a switch called Ashura skill to turn on his mortal hell mode, Nanxing unleashed his full power, turning into a blazing red tornado with his hair flying, his sword alive and ready for a final, powerful blow. While Su Ling, a curly-haired girl with aura-sensing powers, urgently asked her purple-haired coworker Shin Kir if she really felt that terrifying killing intent just now. Shun sighed at the late hour, complaining that she couldn't grow up if she kept staying up past 3 a.m. So Su gently told her to just grit her teeth and keep monitoring Ye City for their superiors. Su Ling glared irritably at Chunar and demanded, "Stop calling me older sister. We are the same age, and just because you haven't grown as much as I have doesn't make you a child." While Chun pouted back, "Look at what you're wearing on your chest. I'm being very polite by not calling you auntie." Suddenly, the night sky turned a deep blood red, and even the full moon glowed crimson, showing a terrible sign. Su Ling instantly went on high alert, her blue eyes widening as she whispered, "Shoo, something's coming," before shouting orders to prepare a path southwest of Yi City at Rift Canyon, while Qin, bathed in mystical blue energy, chanted an ancient spell that revealed a glowing yin-yang symbol in her eyes and unleashed a massive blood-red pillar of hellfire from above, crashing down onto the battlefield just as Nanxing charged forward with a devastating sword strike aimed at the mutated ape king. His deadly strike ripped through the air, making the giant mutant ape king scream out in agony so loud it shook the sky, while chunks of rock flew everywhere. Nanxing flashed a savage grin, his glowing red eyes burning with a deadly hunger and total confidence, looking just like a demon that had finally broken free from its prison. At the investigation agency, Su Ling shook Chunar hard, her voice full of worry, urging him to wake up and tell her what he saw. Was it a nightmare or the truth as Chun screamed in horror, tears and blood mixing down her face, trembling while crying out the name of an Ashura demon amidst the sea of crimson flames, while Nanxing, with demonic eyes and a cold mask, asked the defeated foe, "Had enough fun?" As the colossal mutated ape king panted heavily, its muscular body covered in injuries and its eyes unfocused. The black-haired boy stood tall with his sword held high, showing great strength and said, "If that's not enough, get up and fight again, but don't think I'll make things easy for you." The monster let out a low growl, fresh blood hanging from the corner of its mouth, while its huge body swayed in the broken pieces around it. With crimson eyes burning through his mask, Nanxing challenged his enemy, daring him to keep fighting because dying like this would be a waste. The mutated ape king lifted its head, its golden eyes locking onto you with wide surprise. Then Nanxing made a bold offer. "Join our ranks and we will face all the other races together." The noise died down until all that was left were the young man and the huge monster standing alone. Nanxing stood his ground with patience, his bright red eyes locked tight on his rival. Suddenly, the giant ape king's massive fist froze just inches away, signaling that his fate had been decided. Nanxing grinned and said, Good boy! As a glowing golden stone appeared in his hand, proving the beast had surrendered. As the crimson light faded and Ashuram's mode shut down, Nanzing turned back to his normal self, though his domineering aura still lingered. He stood atop the ruined mountain commanding the mutated Ape King. Listen up, you millions of ferocious,